You live in Montoursville now? I love seeing your daughter's posts. And she posted something not too long ago, and it had and I talked to them. Are you still living now? Okay. I couldn't. I think it's her. But I don't know.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the meeting this evening. Before we get started, I want to remind you that the district is under the universal mask order from the Department of Health. We have to comply with that to be able to remain in person in school. That includes any gathering of any type in the school. So if you don't have your mask on, would you please put your mask on properly now, and please cover your nose. It's what we have to do. No one likes it, no one enjoys it, but it is what we have to do. If you find you cannot wear a mask, we may be able to find a face shield. If not, sorry, but that's the order from the Department of Health. So, with that, thank you for complying. Appreciate that very much. And with that, let's all rise and, first of all, let me call the roll. Randy, would you?
Certainly, Mr. President. Mr. Albert?
Here.
Dr. Berry is absent this evening. Mr. Kunkel?
Here.
Mrs. Marriott?
Here.
Dr. Mathers?
Here.
Mr. Ruffing?
Here.
Mr. Schimmel?
Here.
Mr. Snell?
Here.
Mr. Ulmer?
Here. Okay, would you rise and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda this evening will be presentations, starting off with the business manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. As promised, we are going to be presenting the full budget this evening. I will remind everyone that this budget is put together with the information that we had up to Friday. So anything that has been changed or come in since Friday has not been updated on this. Budgets are always work in progress as we're working through and finalizing the projections for next year. So we're going to start out going through the revenues again, and then we'll look at the expenditures and then put them together. So local revenues are monies generally produced, generated, or collected within the district boundaries of the district. So this makes up 54.65% of our budget. Alright, so looking at the local revenues here. The first two columns are your 1920 actuals, your 2021 budget. Those have been already reviewed several times, so I'm not really going to discuss them. The current estimate we went over at the end of February, there are a few changes. I will highlight those, but not go into great detail. The estimated for the following year, I will touch on them when there is changes from what was previously presented. So the first thing here is the real estate taxes. You'll see that this budget is put together with a zero tax increase. So here it does show a $26,580 increase, and this is just due to assessment changes with the most recent assessment changes we received at the beginning of April. So you'll see a slight increase there. And I'll touch a little bit more on how the real estate taxes will work with how they can impact the budget in a couple slides here. The interim real estate taxes, we remain the same at $20,000. We have some new homes being built and some things coming in. We did have a low year in 1920, but and in the 2021, but I see that we could have some potential for some more interim real estate taxes. The public utility real estate taxes, we left at the $15,000. The payments in lieu of taxes, we left at $45,000. The earned income tax, and I have another slide again on this one also, so I'll go more in depth here shortly with this one. But I did change the estimate for the current year to $4 million and the estimate for next year to $4 million. This is a $500,000 increase overall with the budget. Real estate transfer tax, we've been seeing that pretty steady increasing over the last 5 years, so we have bumped that up to $220,000. Even through COVID, we are still seeing the real estate transfers coming through at a steady pace. So we are confident that that can be bumped up, and that does show an increase of $20,000. Delinquent real estate taxes has remained the same, around $500,000, and investments earnings, we have budgeted that the same at $20,000. The athletic event admission, I still left that a little bit lower than what it was in previous years, just because it is now having the technology to live stream sporting events during the colder weather for the outside sports. It may keep more people at home and we may not have as much in admissions. So I did leave that a little bit lower, which shows a $6,800 decrease. Activity participation fee, we have that budgeted at $9,000, which is where it was last year. It did come in a little bit higher the past 2 years, and we'll continue to watch that and maybe adjust that a little bit here in the future. The device insurance, that we have budgeted at $18,000. This will be the second year that we have offered the device insurance. We'll watch the pattern on this, but I believe the $18,000 is a good number to budget this at. I think we'll be right around there in the future years. IDA funding, we base that on what we're receiving in the current year for the following year, so that is an increase of $4,832. Facility rentals, we took that back up to $3,000. We are hoping things get more back to normal and we can have people coming in and using our facilities and getting the rental income from that. Tuition payments, you see a little bit of an increase there. We had been seeing the increases because a lot of it is from students in other districts that come here to be part of our IU classrooms, and then we send them out to art class, gym class, library, activities like that, and when we send them out into our buildings, we actually bill their home school district for those hours of service. So we had seen that increasing, but this year, due to the decline, because number of students in the classrooms has went down, I'm not knowing what next year is going to bring yet. So we've only budgeted that up a little bit to the $80,000. And that's something that we'll have to continue to watch moving forward. Miscellaneous revenue. So I'll talk a little bit on this one because you see the large jump here. And for the current year. In the current year, this miscellaneous revenue includes a grant that was received locally in the amount of $386,000. So that's why we have the current year estimated so high. Annually, we usually budget this right around $20,000, and it usually comes in a little bit higher, but it's money that we can't count on because it comes from different sources each year. Okay. So,
Randy, I'd like to interrupt for a second, Randy. Board members, if your phone is near your microphone, would you move your phone away from it? Maybe that, as far away as you can get it, if you could.
Okay, that's better. The real estate taxes, I said I'd touch more on this in the future slide, we're right here to the slide. So no tax increase, it's $26,580 increase into the budget just because of the assessment changes. And also showing you a couple examples here of if we increase a tenth of a mil, how much it would increase the revenue, and 0.32, which is halfway to index, and then 0.63, because that's all the way to index. And I just gave you on the average property assessment, because I know that's information that the board always likes to see annually, where each one would be at, and obviously no tax increase would not have the tax increase on an average home, and where it is monthly. So I put that in there for the board's information. The next thing I want to touch on is the earned income tax. So this was a big topic last year because due to COVID, we didn't know where our earned income tax was going to be, just due to the fact that we didn't know what was going to go on in the economy. So I have provided here the last 10 years. And as you can see, it was around 3 million, then in 12-13 it jumped up to 3.6, then 13-14 3.7, then back down to 3.6, and then we kind of leveled out for 3-4 years, well, about 3 years at 3.5. And then in 18-19 we had a big jump again to 3.7, and prior to COVID, I would have told you for 19-20, had COVID not happened, we probably would have been at 3.7, 3.8. But due to COVID, it did drop back down to just under 3.5 million. But where we are to date, currently, without April, May, and June, we are at just over 3.1 million. And my projection for the end of the year is right around 4 million. And why I give that projection is currently we're up 18%, but that would put us at 4.1 million. I think we'll be a little bit lower than 18%, I looked at last year for 1920, which is during COVID times, what our revenue was, and that was $925,000. So you add that to the 3.1 and it puts us right around 4. If I go back to 1819 though, it was at $1,138,000. So that puts us up into that 3.1. To be safe right now, and to project this out, I'm saying it looks like it'll be around 4 million. This is a unique situation where we are seeing an increased earned income tax revenue during these times. So we're just watching it and keeping everything up to date as everything comes in monthly. We'll make adjustments before we present the proposed next month, and the final will obviously have the information from the prior months, which will give us a better vision on where this is going. But I'm pretty confident right now that this year we'll hit about 4 million, and I would project 4 million for next year. So that's where I sit at. Does the board have questions about that? Okay, I'll move on. And we'll look at state revenues then. So state revenues are the monies that come from the Commonwealth appropriations and they're distributed to the district. This makes up just under 40% of our budget, 39.54%. So here, basic instructional subsidy. We don't have numbers yet for next year that we can use for the budget. So we are basing it off of what we're going to receive this year, along with the special education subsidy. Transportation subsidy is based on what we are receiving for this year also. So the big change here is going to be the 7320, which is the rental and sinking fund payments. You'll see this year we have a big jump of the $772,000. And next year then you'll see we have a big dip, which is $308,000, which creates a negative of $208,000. So what caused this? Well, this year we paid off some bonds early. So we were able to receive our portion of those funds from the state back earlier, and we will not be making those payments in 21-22 because they were already made. So we've already received that revenue. But if you go back to my presentation I presented on the bond payments, and I had talked about possibly paying some other bond payments early, the 2015B possibly in the 21-22 school year, that would create this number to jump up about another $300,000. So right now it's budgeted on what we have to pay in 21-22. And based on what we have to pay, we should receive around $308,000. If we do early payments on the 2015B, which was presented to you earlier this year, we would receive approximately another $300,000. So then you would see that as an increase in your budget revenue. But again, this is just on what we have to pay. Is there any questions on that one?
Yes, lady. That's 39%. Where does that make our district fall if you look at school districts within the state?
I'm sorry, 39%. What?
Yeah, if you look at the state, we get 39% of our income from the state.
Oh, okay.
I'm
sorry.
That's low. That in essence, we're considered by the state a wealthy district.
That number is lower in this presentation than in prior presentations because we have more federal funding in this presentation, which I'll get to next, so that number went up a little bit. So I think in the past, I don't know exactly the percentage, but it was a little bit higher, but our local revenue has usually been around 54, 55%.
So would you say at the 40% level, we're probably in the lower 50% in terms of revenue we get from the state that contributes to our budget?
Compared to other districts?
Yeah.
I'd have to do a little bit of research on that because I don't know where everyone else is.
Okay.
So that would be something I'd have to do some research and find out because I don't know what everyone else is receiving. Did you have a question on?
Yeah, what we lost in state revenue there in the 7320, do we gain back in the less payments?
Okay, so,
In other words, does it equal out where, I mean, right now we're showing $208,000 negative or less, I mean, than this year. So does what we subtract off of our bond payments, does that make up for that $208,000 that we're losing out on?
okay, so we didn't lose it. We got it early. Okay, so we didn't lose it. We're receiving the money early in the 2021 school year instead of the 21-22 school year. So we technically didn't lose any money there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense that it adds to our revenue for the current year, but for the next year, what does our bond payments go down? I mean,
our bond payments are not going down because the board agreed to make those payments.
You're right. To pay back the
Yes.
reserve fund.
Okay?
Yep, that answers it.
So that'll be, we'll take care of that in a year. Yeah? No,
Take care of what?
that loan. How long do we have to make that payment?
That payment over to the capital account. I believe that was 2 years on that one, I believe.
But after the second year, then that goes away.
Unless we do another one this year for the 2015 B bonds. Okay? So if we do it for the 2015 B bonds, we'll see additional revenue though in the 21-22 school year also. Okay? So, moving on, and the only other big change here was the other income from the state, and that is your FICA and your PSERS part. So that's an increase of $54,400. So total state revenue, we're looking at a negative $126,000, but it's only because we made early payments, and that was, a good thing to do, and we could possibly do it this year. So that could actually become an increase, not a decrease over time.
Randy, what caused that decrease on the other income from the state? Because you did have projected 198,000 in February.
For the current year, or for the overall budget for next year?
For the overall budget for next year.
So we have retirements, we had some changes in wages. So that number is a moving number. Anytime I change anything with wages or anything with personnel, that number changes. Because that's our reimbursement back from the FICA and the PSERS. Okay, so it goes down if wages go down. Okay? Moving on to the federal revenue. So these are monies from the federal sources, made through grants often, as we've seen in this year. We've received several federal grants for COVID, the ESERS funds, as they're known. So this is going to make up 5.81% of our budget, and this number is usually more around the 2% range. So, but because of the federal monies that we are receiving, then this number has went up a little bit. And to make this simpler, here I did just put the COVID grants all in one lump sum. They are one-time money, but they are to be used over a 3-4 year period of time. And so the titles you see remain the same because that's what we have currently for this year. And so to look at the COVID federal funds, what I did in this budget is I put 1.5 million of those COVID funds into this budget. And as we work through the expenditures, I'll tell you where some of those COVID funds are, and you can identify them and see why we put the 1.5 million in. So it does look like we have a big increase in federal revenue, but that is just due to these one-time funds from the COVID grant. So this budget, it's important to remember going through this, it has COVID stuff in it, and the COVID revenues here and the COVID expenditures.
I'm a little confused here because I know this on this last COVID money that's coming in, it's 2.1 million just in the last one. And this, it doesn't look to me like you have enough money here that we've got. Because like I said, the last one that's coming in is 2.1 million.
Okay, that's a good question. It's because we get to use it over several years. So we have to strategically use it and figure out where we need it and use it over those several years. So if we used it all in the 21-22 school year, we wouldn't have any to use in the next couple of years. So if we spread it out and use it for, what we need, it makes more sense than just use it all up in 1 year.
So what you're saying is what you plan on doing is using 1.8 million next year,
1.5 million.
or 1.5 million
Yes.
next year out of the 2.1 million.
I don't know what the overall total is.
It's actually
Really
higher than
something.
that because the
Yeah.
2.1 million was just the last one.
Right.
We're using the combination of 1.1 and 2.1 in the last two ESERs 2 and 3. So out of those, the majority of 2 will be spent in 21-22. Then half that year, then you're looking at the majority of 3 to be spent.
And the other question I have real quick is, we're keeping ESER's money separate from the general fund, correct? I mean, we're throwing it into the general fund?
It has to be.
Yes. It's given a federal identity code, and it must be in your general fund.
Yes, in order to spend it, it has to be in your general fund.
But there's restrictions on what it can be spent on.
Correct. Yes, there is.
Which is most grants, yes, they are restricted on how you can spend them.
When you report them in general fund, do you put a little asterisk there that will let us know what portion is that these are the money?
I'm going to tell you. You can make note of it. Okay?
Yeah, I can do that.
Well, I'll tell you the amounts and everything. All right. So, if we look at the total revenue here, you're going to see that there is a large increase in the revenue. But it's important to remember that, 1.5 of that is the COVID money, the ASERS money. So that's not going to be there long term. That's short term. Where you see the other two things that are bringing it up a little bit is EIT. We see the increase in EIT, but then we also see the decrease in the rental and sinking fund. So that's where you're coming up with the 1.7 million.
If I total this correctly, what you're projecting is about 860,000 added local revenue above what you budgeted for, and another 520,000 from the state revenue than what you had originally budgeted for. And that would be outside of any COVID money or either money.
Correct, that's what it shows there is the current estimate.
Okay.
Okay. We are going to move on to expenditures. So we'll start with the instruction expenditures. These make up about 57.1. These are the interactions between teachers and students that are directly attributed to the programs of instruction. So here, we're going to start with the wages. You'll see an increase of $40,505. And in looking at this budget, we have been monitoring the declining enrollment over the past 4 years. And in starting to prepare this, we had looked at it and had meetings about it, and we determined that one position was able to be taken out and not replaced through a retirement this year. So that position was taken out. That's why you see this decrease in wages of $40,505 overall. But then you see the employee benefit increase. And this is just due to when we have retirements, and then I have to put someone at that I don't know who they are. I don't know what benefits they're going to take. So when I budget them at the most expensive benefits. So then there's no surprises later on. And if they come in and they take a less expensive benefit, it is savings to the district. So until we have more information on who these employees are and the type of benefits that they need, we do budget it at the overall higher rate of benefits. And then also your PSERS increase is in here also, and I'll touch on the PSERS increase later on. So that is the benefit increase of $151,307. Purchase property has a slight increase of $550, but the next big thing is the 500, and that's an increase of over $100,000. That is the cyber charter school cost. We increased the budget on that last year, and we're still over budget on that this year. So we have increased that in our budget, and hopefully that'll come in closer next year. Supplies, we have a little bit of increase there. This is your classroom supplies, your workbooks, items like that. Property, we have a little bit of an increase of $3,000. Overall, in your regular programs, you're seeing an increase of $308,000. Anything else?
Are you concerned at all that, again, this year you're estimating 618,000 there, and next year putting in 481? Are we going to be under? Should that be a
I'm sorry, I don't. For,
I'm attributing most, not all.
for the cyber school costs?
Yeah.
Okay.
500.
So the 500 is the cyber school cost. I have increased it significantly. This budget is still short 165 compared to where we're going to come out this year. Overall in the budget for charter schools, because charter schools are spread out a little bit throughout the budget, so you don't see it in one specific area. But there's $800 or $800,000 in there for cyber charter school. And what we're projecting for this year is $965,000. So it is a little bit under where we're projecting for this year. But again, if things change with COVID, I think we'll be okay.
You think your estimate, you may still come up with under your estimate for 2021?
For 2021,
Are you feeling pretty
like $5,
18?
maybe $5 under, is that what you're looking for? I am pretty confident in my number for this year. I've been tracking that pretty steadily. So unless we have some big changes in the next month, or less than a month, yeah,
I'm looking.
I'll look for $5 for it, okay? All right. Moving on into the special programs here. Here you see an increase in the wages, $31,678. Employee benefits, $31,330. Purchase professional and technical services. You see an increase of $136,226. That I can say is due to the IU contract. I did receive it late Thursday and was able to put some stuff into this, and there are going to be updates to that, obviously, because, you know, it's a work that's constantly moving, but the increase in the IU contract is reflected in this budget, so that is a line right there. Your other big increase here is your 500, and that's 125,000. That is the other area where the cyber school increase is put into the budget. So that should answer you there. Okay, so overall in the special programs, we're looking at a $325,000 increase. Vocational education, you'll see here, we have an increase there. I already touched base on this prior. It's an increase in students going, and you know, it goes up every year. So we had the increase in tuition and the increase in the number of students going. So that does give us a $33,000 increase, and I did move my slide for it. I'm sorry. There you go. So on this slide, other instructional programs. And this is like your driver's ed, your summer school, your homebound, your alternative education. This is where the Lawyer Online is budgeted. So here you see where we have some changes for next year. And our big change is in the 300s. I spoke to this briefly. It was previously budgeted in the 500s. It should have been budgeted into the 300s as our net new learning services. And you see the increase also at a larger amount is because we are adding additional net new learning services to the district next year to support the middle school and the high school better. And this is where we're going to use some of those COVID funds. So 300s, it's going to be the net new learning, and it's $200,000 of the COVID ESSER funds. Okay? So you see that increase there. And you see the decrease down in the 500 from moving that out of the 500. Overall, we see an increase of $124,100.
Each of the money is supposed to be used for one-time expenditures. Is that 300 and the 300 column there? Is that a one-time expenditure?
It will depend on the needs of the students, but it will get our students back up into the, where we need them to be for missing time, either from being out, due to, having to quarantine or just a lack of being in school for a year. It's going to be necessary next year. How much will be necessary in future years, I can't really tell you, but the additional services is going to be needed next year.
Well, the reason why I question it is because 1920 and 2021, you had money budgeted, so it doesn't look like a one-time expenditure.
Because we had $65,000 budgeted for high school. So that has increased significantly because we are adding additional services. Moving on to support services. These are items that are administrative, technical, such as guidance, health, logistical support. These make up about 26.7% of the budget. And to look at these here, this is your guidance counselors, your psychological services. We see an increase of $9,853 in wages. In benefits, a $6,000 increase. In the 300s, which is the IU contract, of $3,180. Some purchase services we talked about this before, it was an increase of $4,000, and supplies an increase of $100. So overall here, we're just looking at a $23,000 increase. The one that has changed from the last presentation would be the 300s, and that's just due to the IU contract. We're moving on to instructional staff services. This is your tech and library, and the only change in here from what was presented last time, and it's a big change. It's a $300,000 change in the 700s for property. We have been looking at different equipment needed, and they have decided that we need to use some of the extra funds to improve or replace, the whiteboards that teachers are using in the classroom. And that's a big expenditure. It's a one-time expenditure to replace those, and that is in the amount of $300,000. So far, I've given you $200,000, back a little bit, and then the $300,000. So that's $500,000 of the ESSER's funds that are right here. Okay? So overall, you see the increase in this budget of $312,000. Administrative services, this is legal, tax office, superintendent's office, principal's office. Overall, this did not change from the prior presentation and was a $33,000 increase. Pupil health services, again, this did not change from the previous presentation, so everything is just where it was before. and it is a decrease of $34,800. The business services is the next one. We have had no changes here on this one either, and that was an increase overall of $21,000. Operation of maintenance and plant services. We did have a few changes here in this one, so I'll go over that. Wages and benefits did not change. Purchased property, I believe, went down a little bit, so that's an increase of $3,100. Other purchase services went down, and that is down to $4,317. Supplies, you see a negative there of $11,900, and you see the increase in the property, which was on the previous one of $11,200. The increase in the property is because we have a van. It's 2008, I believe, and it's getting pretty bad, and it needs to be replaced if we're going to continue transporting kids with it. So that's why the property is a larger number this year, because we're looking at replacing that van. Any questions? Some supplies can be, yes. It depends on what the supply is. So, you know, you have to look at that and see if any of those supplies fit those needs. Now, the stuff that we use for the blacktopping, that's expensive, the sealant, that doesn't qualify. You know, so you have to look at those expenses and, you know, the PPE, the cleaning stuff, that those can qualify if we want to use it for that. But we will have those costs moving into the future also, because we use them every day. So it can be considered, yes. Yeah. Can you talk into your microphone so I can hear you? You're very difficult to hear way down here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh well, it'll come back.
Okay.
It usually circles around.
Student transportation services. We have left that to where it is budgeted this year. You'll see we did have a little bit of an increase in the purchase professional and technical services for this year, and that is due to purchasing some new cameras for the buses because they are failing, because they are over 10 years old now at this point too. And we are using Beezer's money this year to purchase those cameras on those buses.
I did think now of my, it circled around and it's back again.
Okay.
As far as the supplies, do you think next year there may be a slight rollback on the intensity of the cleaning? In light of the fact that the CDC, you know, has basically decided that transmission is very low when it comes to surface. And this is a respiratory virus. So I'm certainly not advocating that we stop, you know, all of our cleaning, but I know we were very zealous, you know, earlier on, and, you know, wiping down the surface multiple times. If that might translate out into a slight decrease or some decrease in our supply costs, you know, looking at next year.
I can't answer whether that'll happen or not. Just like a lot of these things, we can't answer whether they're going to happen or not. We can only make
It may be
a
with our
projection.
health and safety plan as revisited. You know, the committee might look at those things at that time. Okay.
So we covered transportation. Moving on to activities that are non-instructional services to the students. So these are our activities, our sports, items like that. And you'll see that there hasn't been any changes since it was last presented. The bid is due in the office to be open on Monday. So we will have some more updates on that because we have a lot of these items bid out. So you'll see that more in the next presentation in May. But here you'll see the increase of still $18,025. So the last category here is the debt service, and this is going to be around 14.1%. And as you see last year, we already discussed this at the last presentation, we had adjusted the budget down to try to better balance the budget because our payments were less due to refinancing. Well, after the year of refinancing, the payments go back up to where they were. So you see here we do have the increase of $141,751. So, budgetary reserve. This is where I would put the other users fund. And the reason why we are here, we have identified several needs throughout the district, but we have to gather information for costs and how we are going to meet those needs and best use them. So rather than putting just monies in the budget that we don't have a good solid number on yet, we have put it down here because you have to have your ESER's revenue in your budget in order to be able to use it in your budgeted year. So that's what we have made up our budgetary reserve of, is of these ESER's funds. Questions on that? So when we identify the cost, we can share the cost and tell you how much we're using there. Does that make sense? Okay. Move on. So, looking at our total expenditures, you see here that the total expenditures went up over last year, $2 million, but we have added 1.5 of that from the ESER's funds. So, if looking at it overall, it's about a $500,000 increase, but the other is coming from the ESER's funds that are in the budget. Okay. Let's look at this here. So, this is a summary of the whole budget and where everything is. So, overall, the salaries and wages, the 100s, increased $177,681, which is a 0.58 increase overall. Our employee benefits increased $233,086, which is a 0.76% increase. So one of the questions at the prior meeting was, what amount of that is PSERS? So our PSERS increase for 21-22 is projected to be around $47,700. $737. So the rest of that is budgeting for the higher health care and some health care changes that have happened within the school year this year to create that increase. Your 300 is your increase in the IU contract and the increase in the Nittany Lion learning. So that increase is $344,821, which is a 1.12% increase. Purchase, repair, and maintenance services, an increase of $47,500, which is a 0.15% increase. 500, the other purchase services. This is a $300,000 increase, which is almost a 1% increase, and this is due to the increase in the charter school costs that we have put into the budget. Supplies, $19,735, which is a 0.06% increase. Property of $373,336, which is a 1.22% increase. The majority of that is the $300,000 that's coming from the whiteboard that will be purchased as a one-time purchase. And the 900, the use of other funds, that is the increase in the debt service, and I have the budgetary reserve set at $1 million this year instead of the 600 that we had last year. So overall, it's showing as a $2 million increase or a 6.64% increase. Questions on that page?
Randy, you said that our teasers payments, you have budgeted where they're going up 40,000. What's the total amount you have budgeted for going into teasers for next year?
Okay, so the district's share, I'm only giving you district share here. $2,130,687.50.
So that's not,
So we pay out more and then we get the reimbursement.
yeah, okay. So the reimbursement is considered in on that, $2 million.
No, that is just.
No, I mean,
Yes.
it's paid.
That's the district
paid.
share, yes.
Okay. And the other question I have is, how much total teasers money are you putting in this budget that you have, that you're spending in this budget?
Okay, so what is in the line items is the $200,000 for the Nittany Learning. And the $300,000 for the whiteboards. Okay, and then the $1 million. So there's 1.5 that I put in revenue, right? So then you need to match that. The $1 million is put into the budgetary reserve. So then when everything's identified and we know where the needs are and what the exact costs are, we can then have that money, it's in the reserve, so that money can be spent.
So you're not putting any in for capital reserves where we can improve the air quality in schools? Am I reading right?
If that is what one of the needs is, that is identified, then that will be looked at. Okay.
Just looking again at the 900 area, so of the 4.6 million you're putting in the is for debt reduction.
Yes,
And the other million is,
the budgetary reserve.
yeah. And you're funding that budgetary reserve using
The ESSER's fund.
user fund.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So here it shows you where we're going to end up, where my estimate is this year. This year I'm estimating a surplus. We had originally planned for a deficit. We have received several different grants that we've been able to use and maximize our revenues for the year. So right now we're looking at a $212,000 surplus. Estimates for 21-22 currently, with the information from last Friday, was at a deficit of $676,000. So again, I put in here, you know, if an increase was suggested, different increases, how they would offset that current deficit that you see as of last Friday. I have put that information there for you to look at if you would like. I'm going to move forward to the next slide now. So,
Quick question, Randy. Looking at our current year budget then, we had $597,000 in our budgetary reserve. Now, 197 of that was CARES Act money, correct? That
yes,
we applied towards that was the safety and security.
the PCCG safety and security was someplace else. That was actually up in state revenue where that came in at. That was different than the Paris money.
Okay, but we did use that 197.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And was that just interspersed or?
I don't, the 197, what it was used for.
I can't answer that without actually looking, because there are many different types of uses.
Yeah, okay. It was mixed in. It could have been supplies, it could have been.
It was all different things.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was, yes, but that's already up into the budget stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving on to the fund balance, where we're going to be. Where we're at, we're going to be adding on to the fund balance. So, with this surplus. So, I'll go back to, yes, we're looking at a deficit for next year. This number will change as we move into the proposed final budget, but we are also looking at our fund balance increasing this year because we do have a surplus for the current year. So as I'm looking here, my proposal, my suggestion would be we have the security of, you know, the COVID funds for next year, and we have a good sized fund balance. So if we need to cover a deficit of anything, I think we should be able to do that out of the fund balance if needed. So I'll go over the timeline here. Tonight we are reviewing the full budget. At the fourth meeting in May, we will adopt a proposed final budget. For the work session, I will basically just give you any changes that have been made. And then for June, we will approve a final budget. So that's the timeline. So discussion on what we discussed. Just remember, I always want to remind everyone, this is a work in progress. So, you know, what was here, I said several times, is this was the information that I had on Friday. I already know changes to this budget that are going to change where things are coming in at. I always try to provide the earlier it is, I provide more of a worst case scenario. So it's going to come down lower as we work through it a little bit more. So I'll leave it to the board for the discussion now.
Randy, in the current budget, are you confident that with your estimate of $212,000 at the end of the budget year?
Yes. Unless something majorly comes in, I think we are going to see that surplus. Our EIT has been, we have over $500,000 in EIT alone that has been able to really help us. And then with the COVID funds, we've been able to supplant some money. We've had less costs in some areas just due to the fact that, you know, our clubs can't go anywhere. We're not spending the same amount of money as we would if we were operating normally. So we're still operating limitedly.
The next couple of weeks, will you be working to trim that 301,000 even more?
The 301.
Deficit.
Oh, no, the deficit is the, right here, I don't know if you can see my mouse up there or not. It's the $676,386.
And I realize that, but you said you was confident with coming out with this full year of 212,000, so I subtracted that off the.
Okay, so you subtracted that off there. It'll be, I think we'll be able to trim some more of that down, yes. Any other questions, comments?
One final question. Do you plan on moving any of that fund balance into the capital reserve fund?
So moving it in, that would be a board decision. If they wanted to move it in, I had presented some early bond payments back in the, back, I think it was January, February, and I want to keep working on getting some debt paid off early also, but that really is not out of fund balance, but that could help if we transfer some money over to fund balance and getting some of those paid off early, so when we're ready to do something, we have more funds available to us.
Oh, I'm ready to do something.
You're ready to do something, okay?
Yeah. Oh, make the air quality better out of the valley.
Okay. Anyone else?
Okay, board, if there's no more questions for Brandy on the budget, we'll move on to the next item.
Okay, can I just, sorry. So I just want to, everyone is good with me bringing a proposed budget with no tax increase with some deficit in it for the May board meeting? Okay, I just wanted to make sure everyone was on board with that, and that's what I'll prepare for you for May 11th then.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump up and down. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to some presentations by our students. First, we'll have Christian Smith has a presentation for us. Well, public, we thank you for the input. We really do. Thank you for your passion, your interest in this topic. It is certainly controversial, might be an understatement. Board, if you wish to offer a final thought yourself. Oh.
Yeah, I
Hold on, Andy.
Can I address the questions that were asked? I have the answers right here because they were right in the
Okay,
budget.
all right.
And I think it'll help clear up some misunderstanding in the budget. So the comment was made that our Healthcare was over $8 million. Actually, the 200 is labeled as employee benefits, but that is made up of more pieces than just healthcare. So I wanted to clarify that because our healthcare costs that are in the budget for 21-22 is $2,853,760, which in the budget there is 152 people for that healthcare. And so when you're looking at, I figured out how you came up with the 8 million, which is you're using the 200. So I just want to explain what is in the 200. So the full FICA is budgeted in the 200s because the reimbursement is budgeted up in the revenues from the state. So the full retirement is also budgeted in those benefits. So again, that revenue is budgeted up in the state. So those are where that's offset a little bit. The healthcare is in there, the dental's in there, the life insurance is in there, and the income protection is in there. So I just wanted to make it clear, it wasn't just the health insurance that was $8 million, it was a bunch of other benefits that the employees received. And the total health care was $2,853,760. And it's 152 employees in this budget. So just to make sure that's all clear. And the contributions towards healthcare, the administration all currently has contributions to pay towards their healthcare, different contracts with different amounts. So those are the groups that do have contribution share there. The other question that came up was in regards to cyber school costs. So I pulled out the 363, which has to be submitted each year. And it's a worksheet calculation that you go through to determine how much each school district pays for cyber charter school. And I think it's important here to remember what we pay for cyber charter school is not what Loyalsock pays for charter school. It's not what South Williamsport pays for charter school. It's not what Williamsport pays. It's not what any other district in Pennsylvania pays. Every district pays a different amount. So no matter how much it actually costs cyber charter schools to educate the students that are going there, that doesn't matter. It's based on school district budgets, and every district pays a different amount. So that's important to remember as you're looking at this. So our 363 that was submitted for the 2021 school year for a regular education student, it was $11,223.27. For a special education student, it's $22,474.31. So I hope that answers some of your questions there. And I just wanted to clear up those things for you.
And Brandy, additionally, the loss of a child to cyber charge also means a loss of our basic subsidy, which would be in the upper 3,700-ish, $33,000 to 3,500, correct?
I believe that was the last time that it was calculated, it was around there.
The grand total swing in revenue or swing in dollars really pushes 15,000 to have somebody go
about 14,
charter.
yeah.
Yeah. Now that shouldn't be just confused with Warrior Online. Warrior Online is a different program altogether. We think it's a little more successful than charter. With Warrior Online, we do receive our basic education subsidy. We have to pay almost all of that for the Warrior Online, but it's not near the cost of a charter school. So if you're considering out-of-school education next year, we really recommend you consider Warrior Online. It's as good, if not better, and it's run by a school district up in Warren County, and they have a good track record. So a little, I guess, publicity for Warrior Online if you need it.
Dave?
No, I just wanted to address that to clear up some of the confusion there.
Scott, you can talk to Brandy after the meeting if you like. She's available.
She answered the one question. Thank you, Brady. mentioned the contributions, but you didn't give a percentage. You said
I said they're all different depending on the contracts. I don't have contracts here in front of me,
okay.
so it's just the admin that has the contributions at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, board members, if anybody wants to.
Just to follow up on the cyber schools, you know, I mean, you as taxpayers are paying for a 52% graduation rate at $14,000 a kid. I mean, is that acceptable? That isn't acceptable to me. You know, I've been saying for 3 years since I've been on the board, we got to do something. You know, it's just ridiculous. I mean, you know, what would the state do to us if we had a less than 52% graduation rate as a public school? Think the state would keep giving us money? I mean, I'm just as much a taxpayer as anybody else sitting here. Something needs to be done about these cyber schools.
Actually, I think something should be done about the public schools. So.
Board members, any other?
Well, I want to follow up then on the conversations that we had here today. You know, we had some people come up and speak. I didn't hear anything about faith. Didn't hear anything speak about freedom. Those are the two key things in my life. And that's my choice. And that's many other people's choice that are sitting here today. The other thing that I'd like to say is that I see division. Show of hands at how many people in here don't want the mask.
Well, no, Dan, you're addressing me as board president, not addressing the audience. You're speaking to me, offering your thoughts about board activities, board action, board perspective. This isn't a discussion with the public.
Oh, it's not.
No, you want to speak to me as the board president, directing board members, offering your thoughts.
Oh, okay, my thought is there's division in this country. That is my thought to you. And it's not going to get any easier. You know, if you want to fear something, fear that division. Because it's going to grow, it's going to be greater, and these masks are fueling it, you know, a lot of it. This is bringing out the best in all of us, right? It's not bringing out anything out of us. All it's doing is creating division. And you know, I cannot, you know, sit back and say, yeah, I'm good for it. You know, let's get through 31 days. No, because like other people have said, it's not going to go away for us. It's not going to happen. We have got to stand up and do something. You know, here's the thing, Dave. If we were to sit here and just bury our heads in the sand like we do any other time, and continue to bury our heads in the sand, where are we going to get? How are we going to accomplish anything? You know, this is about. There's just as many people that are sitting in this room. There's just as many people that are in this country that believe we're split. We're just dead split, and that's the scariest part of this whole thing. You know, my hope is that this community can come together and do something to get to Harrisburg, get legislation, do things, and come together and work together. And you know, Billy, you're absolutely correct. And the longer we sit on it, and the longer we just bury our heads in the sand, the more we're just going to get pushed around like puppets.
The longer our kids are hurt.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Dan. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to speak. Everybody sitting in this room knows that our sports haven't been following the Pennsylvania Department of Health guidelines. The guidelines from the Pennsylvania Department of Health is coaches, athletes, including cheerleaders, and spectators must wear face coverings if they cannot maintain sustained physical distance from person outside of their household. This includes while actively engaged in workouts, competitions, on the sidelines, in the dugout, etc. If sustained 6-foot distancing can be maintained, face coverings may be removed when outdoors. Now, I don't want anybody in this room to take me wrong where I think athletes should wear face coverings too. But the point I'm trying to make is us as a school district has not been following them guidelines when it comes to sports. I've seen it, you've seen it, everybody's has seen it. Mitigate or eliminate employee, teacher, student, and customer exposure to people who cannot wear or refuse to wear a face covering. What does that mean? If a business or school has an employee, teacher, student, or customer who cannot wear a face covering, the business or school should employ additional mitigation efforts to keep their staff safe, such as providing plexiglass shields, offering services outdoors, adjusting schedules, or additional physical distancing opportunities. We, as taxpayers, bought plexiglass shields to be used on every desk in the district. I mentioned this at the last board meeting, that a compromise could be anybody that doesn't want to wear a mask continuously all day. If they're sitting at their desk behind a plexiglass shield, they should be able to take the mask off. When they get up to change classes, as happens in the high school, require masks going down the hall. Once they get to their desk, if they have a plexiglass shield on the desk, let them take the mask off. It's coming right from the Pennsylvania Department of Health website. Our superintendent sent an email to the Deputy Secretary for Education and Secondary Education, a Mr. Matthew Stem, Deputy Secretary. In the reply back to our superintendent, he replied, I am ready to address the recent outreach concerning adhering to the requirements of the updated order of the Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Health requiring universal face coverings, in parentheses, the order. As you noted, the requirements of this order concerning masking are not optional for your district, and the order requirements may not be abrogated by your school district's board of directors. The order's masking requirements remain applicable to your district, subject to further order by the Secretary of the Department of Health. What I just read to you about the shields was from the Pennsylvania Department of Health. We would not be against the attestation if we put the shields on the plexiglass shields on the desk and allowed our students to take their mask off behind them.
Ron, I believe you're mistaken on the shields. We bought the shields, and within weeks after buying those shields, we were told they're not valid. We were told that. That's why we ditched them.
Hey, I just read it off the Pennsylvania Department of Health.
And I think that you're missing a point. The only time that you can not wear a mask is when you try everything else. Those shields are not a substitute for masks according to that health order. If you read it further and completely, I think you'll see that.
Did you hear the question that was submitted to get that answer? Mitigate or eliminate employee, teacher, student, and customer exposure to people who cannot or refuse to wear a face covering.
But it doesn't mean they can just refuse and come in. Read the entire order, it will explain that.
Maybe you should read the entire, on the entire website on the Pennsylvania Department of Health. And the other thing I want to bring up is The mask breaks at the elementary schools, having students stand in one spot for a mask break while they're outside, it reminds me of giving them time out. They are outside. If they want to take their mask off, let them take the mask off outside. Don't make them stand in a spot while their mask is off like they're in timeout. They're elementary kids, especially the younger elementary kids. They see the other kids play and they're in timeout.
Did CDC just today come out with the idea that they're no longer going to enforce the mask order outside?
If you're fully vaccinated.
So if that's the case, if CDC lifted the mask mandate,
Only if you're fully vaccinated.
so what?
Our kids are not fully vaccinated yet.
This is a board discussion right now. The board is discussing this, the public has had their opportunity. The board is now discussing the matter.
I mean, I you know, especially our young, they need to be outside. They need not to have those masks on when they're outside.
I think that gives us hope, though, Danny, that they will subside from some of these mandates as they get the evidence.
But as we've been told, and the thing that is with viruses is that the virus is just going to mutate into something else. It's not going to go anywhere. It's always going to be here. It's not going to go away. And I just fail to wrap my head around the idea that for the last 200 years that we've dealt with viruses, that, you know, why is all of a sudden a mask the answer?
Because it's control.
All right. Actually, that's a question that will be answered by a million people in a million different ways for a long time to come. Board members, anybody else wish to, all right, in that case, can we entertain a motion to adjourn?
Wait a second, Dave. I'm not done. I got one more thing here.
Go ahead.
After the CDC spoke today, Channel 16, which we all know is liberal, they put out a thing on what is safe, less safe, and least safe according to the new CDC guidelines. Unvaccinated people, I'll give you the unvaccinated people issue because that seems to be the biggest issue with some of the board members. Walk, run, or bike outdoors with members of your household, unvaccinated is safest. Attend small outdoor gatherings with fully vaccinated friends and family, unvaccinated is safest. Attend small outdoor gatherings with vaccinated and unvaccinated people. Unvaccinated people is safest. Dine at an outdoor restaurant. Unvaccinated people less safe. Attend a crowded outdoor event. Unvaccinated people is least safe. Now, if you heard everything I just read, it isn't all about vaccinated people that where it's safe. It's about unvaccinated people, which means that the masks aren't that important.
And the vaccines are not FDA approved, they're experimental.
Board members, no one else? Entertain a motion to adjourn? There's a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Yeah, I don't know why you're rushing.
Meeting adjourned.